flag salute, Ms. Stamets.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Kraus.
Here.
Ms. Stamets.
Here.
Ms. Glosser.
Here.
Mr. Lavasser.
Here.
Mr. Amendola.
Here.
Ms. Perry.
Here.
Mayor Bloom.
Here.
So approval of the bill list. At this meeting, we have both a regular bill list and a very short addendum. Motion for approval.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes dated June 10th, 2019.
So moved. Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Passed. And approval of the public hearing minutes on the South Grandview Sewer Separation Project from May 29th, 2019.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. So we have citizens' comments. Oh, okay, all right, and this is, okay, so we have the parking on the agenda?
Not this agenda.
Okay, so Dorothy will take your comments at the end of the meeting since we don't have parking on the.
That's fine.
All right. And then we move on to acknowledge the receipt of the written report from May 2019, the treasurer's report, the financial report, Act 511 and trash collection reports, property tax collection report, police report, EMS report, ordinance officer's report, building inspection report, public works report, fire department report, and library report. And I'd like to point out for the community that these reports are the ones that do not have personal information on them are uploaded to the website after they've been accepted. They're also available in the borough office for free inspection, and anyone who wants any copies from the borough office of the physical copies, the staff is happy to make them for 25 cents per copy. So moving on, we have a very interesting presentation this evening. RJ, do you want to introduce this?
Yeah, so the borough staff were approached a couple weeks ago from Jason, who is part of the scouting team for, am I allowed to, I hope I'm allowed to say it because it's on the agenda. So for the scouting team for Manhunt, which is a TV show that is working on, that's new, that is working on its second season. They were checking out the borough for initially just one location to do kind of identify the suspect scene, but through walking around the town, checking out different locations, talking with the staff, the residents, the business owners, I think that they were satisfied with the response and decided to pick up a couple more locations for some really exciting scenes. So assuming I can get the airplay passcode to show up on my phone, I'll be putting up maps to illustrate sort of just their presentation of what places downtown might be impacted by the filming. Maybe you all can talk about sort of your plans to deal with people that would regularly, need to park to get down there. And, any other issues that the community might experience. There we go. As part of this, I do want to note that we have met together with the police chief and the public works director as well, just to make sure that all logistical details are worked out. So that's all been done before we've even gotten to this point.
And certainly businesses and property people as well?
Yes, I mean, the Jason and Ken have been pretty highly involved with going and talking with all the individual stakeholders, which I'll let them detail that if necessary, you know, on an individual level, since that's been all them. My experience has been they've been very thoughtful and trying to be as accommodating as possible to make sure that things, you know, don't get jammed up during the filming. But this is a really exciting opportunity for the borough. So, if you all could come to the microphone, please.
Sure, I was just going to ask, someone wants to address you.
Yeah, let's go ahead with Council. I guess you could
Okay.
turn sideways if necessary.
Sure.
I have a little issue with that.
Yeah.
Well, like RJ said, I'm Jason. This is Kent. We are in the locations department for the television show Manhunt. Thank you for having us into your community. I will start by giving you the really broad strokes of what we're doing and then offer up the opportunity to ask me any questions. If, for whatever reason, we have technical difficulties, brought lots of cards, I'll give each of you who are interested a card. My email address is on here, my phone number is on here. You can text me or email me for a request of this information or to ask me another question that might be related to our work. So yes, we did come here initially with one location in mind. And after talking to some of the folks in the town, specifically the business owners up on East Crafton Avenue, and exploring it with some of the creative folks on our end, we started to slowly fall in love with pretty much the entire town. And so each day we're going to do a little bit of a different piece of work. And a broad overview of the areas we're filming in can be seen here, starting at the top left-hand corner, down on 1 East Crafton Avenue where the Sharp Edge building is. We have some work there on Monday and Tuesday. Tuesday we also have some work in the Rast Hall Square. That's what we're calling the Crafton Plaza, calling it Rast Hall. And Wednesday will be kind of all the way up and down East Crafton Avenue and even a little bit into the circle. And Thursday we're back to just that quadrant in the top left-hand corner. And then Friday we're down at Big Daddy's Donuts. So what does all of this mean? It means that we've had to coordinate with every business and many of the residents that are in this area. I would say the majority of which we've gotten in contact with. We still have a handful of people that either aren't living here or haven't gotten back to us. There's somebody renovating a home, for instance, next to Rast Hall that we've been attempting to make contact with through their contractors. So far, everyone in the community has been able and willing to work with us in terms of accommodating our requests, and even a couple of folks that we're in the midst of talking to now about potentially making a little bit of extra effort for us. So that's obviously very broad strokes. I'd like to open it up to any questions that somebody might have, either from the council or I can take it from the audience, up to you guys.
Any questions from council? From the community?
Is there any, like, that would help from us as a community to, say, beef up the production, or like, what would you need from us? Like, what would be helpful?
Good question.
I mean, at this point, if you're, the people that we meet inside of these areas are the people that we're going to be dealing with the most. It's just for anybody who doesn't know what our show is. It's called Manhunt. It's the second season. The first season is available to view on Netflix now. It focused on the Unabomber and the eventual capture of Ted Kaczynski. Our season focuses on the '96 Atlanta Olympic bombing, the accusation of Richard Jewell. For anybody who remembers this stuff, his eventual vindication and unfortunate few months that he had to go through, the identification of Eric Rudolph as the actual suspect, and then we chase him into the wilds of North Carolina, where he's eventually apprehended. Some 6 years later, I believe. That's actually what we're coming to do here, is not the wilderness part, but this is, for anybody who remembers the history of this, Eric Rudolph bombed a clinic in Birmingham, Alabama, and was identified leaving the scene of that bombing. And that's how we found out who he was, that's how they identified his car, and that's how they tracked him into North Carolina. And that's what we're looking to do here. The biggest impact that we're going to have is parking, and that's I think we have some more detailed slides that are going to be coming up here. And what we're endeavoring to do is coordinate our work so we're not impacting the whole of this area at any given time. That we can segment it, and essentially, for example, the top corner of the screen near the busway where the what we're calling that's the clinic, the old Sharp Edge office building, and you can see the yellow is what we're going to need as far as clearing parking. Sometimes for our production vehicles, which you see in blue, but mainly because our movie takes place in 1996. So keeping things period is one of the most important things to us, and period vehicles is one of the most important plays that we have as far as making sure that everybody thinks that we're still in the mid-90s. As far as the community is concerned, we're looking forward to hearing from everybody, and again, we'll be distributing letters and making sure that we're out there and open to talk with anybody that might have questions about what we're doing. But it's going to be just on the days we're filming, differing traffic patterns and differing parking situations as we go through.
And I mean, in each of these instances, we've gone day by day with the folks out on the street to say, on this day, this is where we're going to impact you. On Tuesday, we'll impact you in this way. On Wednesday, this is going to be the biggest challenge that we have. As they scroll through the slides, you'll start to see our day by day. This is the biggest day of all, obviously. And as we film this scene, we're starting really big here, right? We're asking, hey, please let us have all of this and clear it. And we're actually in the midst of talking to a few different local businesses who might need 1 or 2 spots in places, and we're going to do some movie magic and put down some what we'll call blocking vehicles, right? So we have to have a modern car somewhere on the street for whatever reason. We'll take a period car that's a bigger truck and block it.
Same dump truck over and over again.
Yeah, same exact 1990s bus. But then as we come throughout this day in particular, once we sort of wrap what's behind us, say from the tower back, things will start to open up a little bit more. And then finally, when we get toward the very tail end of our work, it'll start to resemble the town. And it's, at least it's somewhat normal state having a film crew in it for the last 2 days. And same thing, Thursday becomes kind of a mirror of Monday at this point. And then Friday, we move into Big Daddy's Donuts, which is a different location altogether from East Crafton, but working with local business owners there, and including Big Daddy's Donuts and his son who owns the property across the way where the Dollar General is located, and Crafton Lumber. Obviously a little bit different than what the town's used to seeing. We're deeply appreciative of the fact that we can come into Crafton. We think it's beautiful, we think it's cinematic. Everyone on our team is incredibly excited about putting it on TV and it being part of a show for eternity, as long as people are watching TV. And I think.
Oh, sorry. I was going to, but Jason and I live and work in Pittsburgh. It's important to us in the other communities that we've gone to that we have a good experience, and they would welcome whether a production that we're working on or a production that somebody else would bring to town would be interested in doing this again. So that's what our goal is, obviously, when we come to town, and anything that we can learn from the community as a whole. As far as how Crafton operates, every town we go to is different. It has its unique challenges, and things that are great about it, things that are maybe as far as like here, the roundabout and all the traffic around that area. Anything that we can learn to help things operate more smoothly while we're here, we're interested in hearing. And I saw you had your hand up.
I figured it out. I just missed the original dates. But
Oh,
I saw
okay.
the,
That's July 8th through the 12th. Any other questions from you folks?
I'm wondering about Port Authority with the parking for the busway.
Yeah, so we've been fortunate enough to establish a relationship with the Port Authority on several locations we've done on different shows in the past. Our contact there, Chuck Rumpala, has been great at working with us, expressing his challenges very candidly to us, and requiring of us to notify residents, which is usually done near the busways. We're posting these signs. We'll probably be doing this as early as end of this week, letting folks know, hey, this is exactly where you're not going to be able to park those days. That gives them plenty of time to kind of adjust what their morning routine might be, as opposed to showing up on that Monday for the first time and finding out where they regularly park is not available.
Thank you.
You got it.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Okay,
We
would anybody
are
like
looking forward to it.
a card?
Yes.
I will just leave a couple extras with you to maybe pass along. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Feel free to ask RJ for my contact information.
Will the buses have to be diverted?
No,
No.
yeah, the busway will be fine.
Can we get one of those cards?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your time, everybody.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Be safe in the rain. Bye-bye. Thank you, RJ.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, moving on to the president's report. I wanted to start out with just a couple of basics. I think one of the things that, in all the time that I've been on council, one of the things we hear about is how convoluted or confusing things are. And what I wanted to show up as Exhibit A, this piece here is the borough code that this municipality is governed by. It's available digitally. You can see that it's well earmarked. And consequently, that is why this gentleman sits to the right of the president, and that we have a solicitor at every meeting to help keep us on track. And yeah, it is confusing, and we are going to try and be, and I think we have been as much as possible, to be clear about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And we're always welcome of any comments and suggestions on how we can do that better. And then I just wanted to remind everybody on council and in the community that this council governs as a body. That means that there is no single council member who can act or direct actions unilaterally. It also means that we need to discuss and deliberate together and publicly. That's what the Sunshine Act is about, that everybody's talking about. And that we have to do it at advertised meetings when business is going to be conducted, and we have to have a quorum. At this point, a body of 7 means we have to have 4 people present. And in all the time that I've been on council, we've never failed to have a quorum, and usually we have 5 or 6 members here. We very rarely have more than one missing at a time. The unfortunate dilemma that causes, pardon? Oh, excuse me, thank you. The unfortunate thing that means is we've got this almost conflict between transparency versus quick meetings that everybody wants. So I did want to just bring that around and ask everybody's forbearance, because we are going to continue to make every effort to be a transparent body. And sometimes that's just a little messy and it takes time. So one of the other things that I wanted to talk about is that we will be observing the current community comment rules. At this point, they stand at 3 minutes. We are going to start timing them, because there are times when, okay, there aren't very many people here, that, you know, the meeting is moving pretty quickly, and then we allow people to have more time. And so from meeting to meeting, we're not being consistent. So we are going to do that, and at the same time, we will take up in the very near future to review whether the current rules really serve the community needs, and the council needs to hear what the community has to say. So you have my promise that we will be reviewing those, but in the meantime, we are going to observe those. I've talked about the fact that the written reports are uploaded to the website, that they are available. So please avail yourself of those, and if you have any questions about any of them, please contact the manager first and/or for me, and we'll make sure that your questions are answered. So on today's agenda, we have a couple of things. We are going to be talking about a backflow diverter mini grant program. I want to be clear that we did not cook this up overnight in response to last week's rain event. That it's something that the administrative staff has been working on and researching, looking for other programs and some guidance on how we can implement that. RJ will be talking about it a little bit more in her report, and then we'll be discussing it as a body at length in our discussion portion. Yes, I think that is thunder.
All time.
All right. All right. And then I just want to assure everyone that we know that there's been a lot of talk back and forth about infrastructure and emerging economic development. Both of those were key pillars to our comprehensive plan, and we need to work on those and find a balance to create a strategic plan that we can implement. And it's my belief that Crafton is going to have to look at myriad of possible projects in both arenas and to make some hard choices that we provide a balance to what we can achieve as a community and while keeping our municipal finances intact. So then just a couple of things that we aren't going to be talking about tonight, but to be on the lookout. Just wanted to point out that budget time is near. By mid-August, the staff and council begin to look at major expenses and decisions that we can pursue in our 2020 budget or next year's budget. Once we get the August end of the month or end of the quarter, actually that's not the end of the quarter, excuse me, the end of the month in August, financials put together, that's when the budget modeling and planning starts in earnest. And that's all work that goes on with the administrative staff, all the departments, with input from conversations from council members, so that we can be ready for those budget meetings and have substantially intact budget projections and things to discuss so that we can meet the goals in as few as 2 or 3 budget meetings and hammer things out. One of the other things that has been on our lips for some time, and I want to make sure that everyone is aware that it is not going to the back burner, but with a lot of the new things that have been happening and some of the zoning variances that we have worked through in the past months, one of the things that has been was actually in our early intervention recommendation from 2017 is a zoning ordinance review and revamp. Administrative staff is currently looking, it's an expensive process, because we have to have professionals advise and steer us in that effort. So administrative staff is looking into DCED grants and or county money to help with that. Evidently, it's a common use of the DCED Municipal Assistance Program grant. So you'll hear this will take a little time to get, to really get into motion, but there's been a lot of work in the past months along those lines to get us ready for that. And then my last thing, the last comment that I want to make tonight is that, again, a lot of the conversation and a lot of the work that we've been doing has been targeted to blight prevention and remediation. And we had last year, last summer, we had intern help, and we had a committee that did some really good work to really begin to address that issue. And one of my personal goals would be to look at helping to get that effort restarted and to be able to work hand in hand with planning and zoning and that sort of thing, both for prevention and remediation. So that's what I have to say tonight. So we'll just move on to the mayor's report.
Good evening. I do have a report that I left in the car.
Oh, that's right. That's fine.
Chief Sumter had sent me a report on the click it or ticket mobilization between the 13th of May and the 2nd of June. Crafton Borough was awarded $1,600 budget for enforcement. Officers were assigned to enforcement patrols, which totaled the following results. There was 26 contacts, 2 child seat violations, 11 speeding violations. Traffic signs or controls was 5, obedience to traffic control devices was 2, suspended drivers was 3, and other traffic citations was 5, and there were also 4 other arrests involved during that. 8 officers from the police department, that'd be everyone with the exception of the chief, were involved. Total of 26.5 hours were worked by the officers during the enforcement, and that money will be reimbursed to the borough. The overtime will be reimbursed by the state. In your report, it said there was no Narcan usage for the month. Just over this past weekend, unfortunately, we had another overdose death in Crafton. No Narcan was used, but again, this was straight heroin, and it was an overdose, and the police nor the medics were able to do anything because it had been too long. And then one question I do have would be to about the Harris Street railing that was broken when the tree went down.
Yes.
And I have a resident that's been contacting me about the railing not being repaired, and I'm wondering if I can get an answer that I can give to this person.
RJ, would you like to elaborate on that
Sure.
subject?
Yes, so I did make contact with the resident when I got back from vacation last week. He and I checked in again today. It's already something that's been referred to Public Works. Essentially, that railing, it seems that was a piece of railing that was, they had some sort of material at the Public Works yard a long time ago that would match it, so they're trying to figure out, do we have that material again to match the railing, and if not, do we need to just go and buy something that will match it? But so this is something that the Public Works Director is already aware of. He's out today, but when he's back in tomorrow, I'm gonna check in with
Right,
him.
and then I actually had a conversation with the resident as well, and I did remind him that the conversation happened on Monday. We had the ring event on Tuesday, which took up Wednesday and Thursday of Public Works. So we've had a lot of assurances that we were on this one.
Okay, just so my next contact with him, I'll let him know that things are happening in the right direction.
All right, yeah, he's making sure we all know about this one.
And then in your police reports that were submitted, you can see the amount of arrests that were made for the month of May. Only 2 minor marijuana arrests, and nothing extremely serious, but this was a good month compared to what was seen. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Anybody have any questions for the mayor?
No, thank you very much.
So on to the engineer report.
Thank you, Madam President. Just want to reiterate 2 items that are on the agenda for action tonight. Resolutions requesting the grant funding, committing Crafton funding, and requesting the grant funding for the Alcoasand Borough projects. There's 2. We've been talking about them over the past several months, and we are looking for those to be approved, and I should say if they are approved, they can be entered into the application, which is due June 28th. So we're going to be submitting that shortly. That's all.
All right. And we need to have those resolutions as part of the application, question mark?
It's not required. If you can't get it this month, it'll have to come next month.
Okay. So
But
we
they're
know that it's
required.
time sensitive.
Right, and they're required not for the submittal, but they're required for the application to be considered.
Okay. All right, and then solicitor?
Yes,
Oh,
It works, we guess with him.
oh, just because the green light's not on?
Yeah, it's.
Okay. Got a
I'm
strong
glad
voice
that-
there.
that's okay.
Just hit the button in.
Just quickly, as council directed at the last meeting, I re-advertised the ordinance with respect to the stop signs on Harris Clearview and the parking, no parking on Johnston, and that will be on your agenda on July 8th. I also left a draft resolution for everyone's consideration if council were to decide to move forward with appointing an individual for a vacancy tonight. This resolution is required to be passed. Additionally, any successful candidate must also execute an affidavit of residency in front of a notary public, and the affidavit says that the individual is a registered elector of the borough, which means you registered to vote, and that you've lived in the borough for 1 year prior to your appointment, which may or may not be today. In addition, every candidate, I talked to President Perry prior to the meeting, every candidate that comes up will be asked whether or not you're a registered elector and whether or not you've resided in the borough for at least a year prior to today, because those are the only legal requirements for the job. One other thing, I was anticipating having an executive session tonight to talk about property lease issue, but because of my vacation out of town, I was unable to complete that, but I will email everybody this week with a lease agreement for your consideration, and we could talk about it at the next meeting in executive session.
Okay.
That's the end of my report.
Okay. And on to the manager's report.
All right, so our business agenda is kind of light tonight, so Engineer Minsterman kind of took care of the resolution of the programs already. Just the only other resolution on there scheduled for voting is the Fair Districts PA one, which came out of the presentation at the previous meeting. It's my understanding the council agreed to have the resolution prepared for consideration this meeting, so that is just pretty much drafted straight off of the sample resolution that was provided by the presenter at last meeting. Just a couple quick notes about both the vacant council seat as well as the boards and commissions vacant terms. So the council vacancy, when it was discussed to be advertised last meeting, I believe there was some talk of it might be $1,000, it might be $500, you know, some large cost. Just wanted to assure everybody that we managed to get it published for $214.50. So not $1,000. Worked out okay. So just for the record, I was asked to mention that. Onto the boards and commissions vacant terms. In the council meeting packet tonight, there is an info sheet included, which shows all of the terms that are currently available. Applicants from the prior advertisements for letters of interest, including the January-February advertisement. I believe there's one from back in August of 2018 as well for the Civil Service Commission. So that info sheet, like I said, it's in your packets. It's split by all the various boards, commissions, agencies, whatnot. There are some that don't have any applicants, but they may have terms that are coming up in 2019 or within the next calendar year, since not all of them are on the December 31st schedule. So I just highlighted those on there so you're aware in case there's any person that might seek reappointment or any decisions the council would want to make to advertise those seats. You have all of that information in one spot now. So I believe later on the agenda there is, under the discussion section, if there's anything about the letters of interest that anyone wants to talk about, take action, whatever, you know, there's a spot available for that. So the last two items on my report are a little bit more detailed, so bear with me here. But one thing that I really wanted to update everybody on was the I Heart Crafton block party planning effort. So this is something that I'm really excited about that has been brought to the forefront by one of our newest planning commission members, who is an urban planner and has some great experience with this, Ms. Costello. She and I had a really nice meeting around her appointment time where she kind of said, have you ever thought about having a pop-up event? And I said, why, yes, I have. And so off we went, brought the idea to the planning commission, which has been a really lovely forum to kind of get those Main Street efforts going. We pulled in the rec board since it just seemed like it was a good opportunity to maybe sort of form a joint pop-up committee for people in the community that were interested in this. So there's been at least one formally advertised workshop event. We don't have another one scheduled yet, but we're expecting to have one sooner than later. As the planning evolves, we've got people from the Planning Commission, Rec Board, local business owners, representatives from the Crafton Library, myself, and I'm told that some of the local residents, you know, community members just in general, are starting to get involved. So that's really exciting. Tentative date has been set for October 5th or 6th. It's the weekend of that, around the intersection of Noble and Bradford. That's right by the fire department's parking lot. And that coincides with Fire Prevention Week and gives the Crafton VFD the opportunity to be involved. Committee members are working on developing a list of activities that we can have going on here, such as, maybe washable sidewalk chalk, just some different installations, opportunities for businesses in the downtown district to put out marketing coupons, stop in today and get 10% off a bottle of wine or something, just whatever makes sense at the time. And we have heard tell of a reading corner or mini activity for kids coming from the Crafton Library. So that's just, a couple different things that we tossed around. The good news is, although this is not free, it's also not expensive at all. And there are many grants available from the Livewell Allegheny program specifically for types of events like this, as well as some other the efforts to get people out and walking in the community, engaging a little more. But this might be a way that if we can estimate the cost well ahead of time, we might not really have to spend much at all on it. And it's just a really good way to get people more aware that downtown is a place that you can be. It's not somewhere that you just drive through. It's not somewhere you park to get to the bus. It is somewhere that you do that. But amongst all of those other things, it's a place that you can come out and sort of meaningfully participate. And the overall goal is to launch the I Heart Crafton branding, which was a great idea that I think some people on the Planning Commission had when they saw the Pittsburgh Current article that featured the I Heart Crafton decal in the window. So we are hoping that overall that will sort of become a business district specific branding. We've got one of the committee members, Dave Plummer, who works at the tattoo shop in town, drafting up some different logos, marketing, whatever you want to call it. So I will certainly keep you all updated as that goes on, but I think this is a really special way to kind of kick things off and make the business district somewhere that, a capital P place. So, if anyone has any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them now, but it is kind of in the primordial stage of planning still, just, picking up steam. So pretty much all the information I provided is what, is concrete at this time. All right, last item on my report, the Backflow Prevention Device Mini Grant Program. So this is something that I just proposed the council will consider, discuss later on the agenda, just learn about, take some time to review. So back in the fall, when we were still experiencing some wet weather events, as they call them, that were a little difficult for the community to handle because the water table was still so high. Things take time to dry out before they can absorb water again, and we were not there yet. So, of course, we did have the wettest year on record for the Pittsburgh region last year, and it doesn't seem like this year is slowing down. So, you kind of have to prepare for that. So what we've been trying to do is form a tracking database. This is really a self-reported effort right now. We've been asking community members, council members to spread the word and whatnot. If your basement backs up or if you have water just coming in through the cracks because it is so darn wet, please tell us. We will record the date, your address, what type of flooding it is. The hope is that, we can sort of build this map of consistent problem areas, because there are some storms that are going to be so large that, as our engineers said, you design a pipe for a 100-year storm, the 101-year storm will hit. But, if there are particular properties, addresses, blocks, whatnot, that seem to get hit in storms that are not extraordinary, maybe that's where we should really be focusing our remediation attention. So, it's just getting going. It is a small database for now, but please tell your friends, neighbors, business owners, community members, whoever, that, give us a call, send us an email, just to let us know it happened, if it happens in the future. So, on that note, what we've been trying to do in gathering this data is determine whether a backflow prevention device cost-sharing program is something that would be useful. First, after kind of researched this a bit back in the fall, it's come up again, because I think it's particularly relevant now that looks like it's going to be another wet summer. So essentially, this is to sort of alleviate the immediate problem for residents or property owners that experience consistent issues with sewer lateral backups during extreme wet weather events. We're kind of modeling this off of Brentwood Borough's program. There aren't too many places that are doing something like this in general, but Brentwood seems to have a pretty solid one. There is a full copy of the ordinance in the meeting packet, as well as just sort of a cover sheet of general program notes that council has, and again, we're happy to provide to anyone later after the meeting. So essentially, they do this, they did this by ordinance, where properties with 2 or more documented events of backflow incidents can split with the borough the cost of installation of a backflow prevention device, which, you know, the engineers could probably provide a more technical term, but the idea is that your lateral does not go backwards when the sewers are full of water and all kinds of other things. So the cost sharing is based off of quotes that you receive from 3 plumbers certified by the county health department, and then the borough would split the cost of the lowest one. So essentially the process in Brentwood's ordinance is the public works director or the engineer get a report, you know, that you've had some sort of backup event. They try to come out within the next couple days to make sure it's not negligence, any sort of, you know, unusual condition of the property that would indicate this isn't a consistent problem. Once that's been done twice, you let them know, they assess the type of device necessary to prevent backflow for that property, make that recommendation. The grantee goes and gets the quotes. The reasonableness of the quotes, you know, whether it's an appropriate scope of work for the device they've recommended, are certified by the public works director and or the engineer. The grantee goes ahead and contracts the work from whichever of the quotes they've chosen, but the borough would, you know, shoulder half of the lowest quote cost. The grantee, once the work is done, provides the borough with the county's satisfactory inspection in writing, and then the borough would issue the reimbursement to the grantee, so the person that is participating in this program. I've consulted with the borough engineer, unless, you know, Rick, speak now or forever hold your peace. But I mean, it seems like, you know, they're on board with it. I know the public works director has spoken in favor of backflow preventer valves in the past. It seems like something they're all comfortable with. Further research being conducted, trying to get a hold of, there are a couple different people I need to call at Brentwood Borough just to make sure that the implementation of this has been going smoothly, because I believe they adopted this in February of 2018. But next steps essentially are, you know, give the relevant staff and council members additional time to review, since this is just something we're talking about at this meeting for the first time. You know, in between now and the July 8th meeting, if there are no concerns, then my recommendation would be to move forward to advertise a similar ordinance and a mini grant program for Crafton, because, you know, we do have a lot of things in the works when it comes to increasing the capacity of the sewers, but in the meantime, things don't go in the ground overnight, and if this is something that we can do to help people out there having consistent problems, it's not that expensive. So kind of just present that to you for your consideration. It is a discussion item later on the agenda, so unless there are any immediate questions, I'd suggest that maybe that's the best time for us to talk about it in more detail, but that's it for my report otherwise.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the manager before we move on?
With regards to the backflow prevention program that Brentwood implemented, I'd like you to see if they have a waiver to discuss the issue with regards to basically when you're at the house, flood yourself out. So there's
Right.
one
So
means.
we can talk about
Yeah.
that at the discussion
Yeah.
item. So, yeah, I look forward to your question there. Okay. Anything else? All right, moving on to the business agenda. Seeking a motion to approve resolution number 2019-06 in support of a citizens commission for legislative and congressional redistricting. This is the resolution that we discussed at the last meeting and agreed to. So a motion for that resolution.
So moved.
Second. Any questions or discussion? No?
Do we send that in as a borough statement then? How is that done?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. No further discussion. Can we have a vote on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to Public Works. A motion to approve resolution number 2019-07, requesting grant funding from the Allegheny County Sanitary Authority Grow program for the South Grandview Avenue Storm Sewer Separation Project, and that's the one that we had the open meeting on last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll move for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve Resolution 2019-08, requesting grant funding from the Allegheny County Sanitary Authority GROW program for the Crafton Boulevard Storm Sewer Separation Project. And that's the much larger project that the engineer gave us a pretty substantial presentation on during our last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So moving on to the discussion items, let's start with the backflow prevention device mini grant program that RJ kind of outlined, and she did mention that we do have the sample program from Brentwood in our packages, and likely we haven't had a chance to look at that in depth. So I'd like to just open up discussion, and Philip, if you'd like to start with your questions.
Yeah, I'd just like to see if Brentwood implemented a waiver, because as we know with backflow preventers, during these substantial storm events, we're gonna see a prevention of sanitary sewage into the domicile. However, if you have your leader lines connected, which you're supposed to in Crafton Borough, you're going to have an issue of rainwater potentially backing up into your floor drains or wherever they may discharge. So I'd like to see how they dealt with that, because I know that was one of the things that the engineer brought up in the fall when we were considering that.
So whether Brentwood has one or not, you're suggesting that we make sure that we have one?
Yeah, because the concern, my concern is that there's no guarantee that you will not have a flooding event. It just, hopefully in this situation, you'll have a freshwater flooding event versus a sanitary.
So what are we waiving that we're asking about?
That the homeowner understands that the borough is not liable.
Oh, yeah, that's right in there, that if
Right.
you agree, let me see if I can find the actual page that this is on there. Yeah, under the maintenance section, which is page 4 of the ordinance, customer agrees to hold harmless and indemnify the borough for any liabilities pertaining to backflow events that occur after the installation. So, I mean, we can get a little more specific from that, if necessary, but it does agree in this essentially, that the grantee becomes, I'm saying grantee instead of customer because customer is kind of a weird term in my opinion in this situation, but essentially, if you participate in this program, you don't hold the borough liable for if the device fails and you're responsible for maintaining it.
My point is that it's not a failure, it's a matter of function that we have to distinguish here. We don't want them coming back with saying, well, I flooded. Well, yes, of course you flooded because there was pressure coming in from the sanitary system and your freshwater had nowhere to go. Therefore, you had a backup. A freshwater, which is a lot better than a sanitary issue in your basement.
I think a very, very good point, and we'll make sure that that gets addressed. Mr. Minsterman, did you have a comment?
Yeah, one of the items that I think a program like that is successful on and in eliminating or reducing the liability of the municipality is having a certified installer, a plumber, make the installation. So they would know that, right? They would know where to put the backwater valve and should know. And if they put it downstream of the downspouts and the house floods, it's clearly an error on the contractor or the vendor's part. So, that might take some of the liability out as well. So I'm sure all that stuff will get discussed, but that can still happen because not too many people know where their roof leaders tie in upstream or downstream of any particular location. It could be under the basement floor. It could be out in the front yard. So putting that backwater valve in the right spot is critical. So it could require some televising of the laterals to see where these connections are made. So anyway, instead of getting into all those details, the plumbers do that. They're the experts. We review what they submit, and we don't necessarily approve it. We say it makes sense, and you're the expert, and it's reasonable, so we will provide the funding that is being offered. Right, so we stay away from approvals, and we still have the caveats and the coverage of reducing liability for the municipality.
No, they'll help McMunn and Stewart Street.
It could, yes. Once again, these don't solve all the problems. They are successful in stopping water from backing out of the public sewer into the lateral and into the basement or wherever the drain is into the home. So they do have success. That is the purpose of those valves. It's a flap gate, so what's happening is when the water comes out of the home, the flap gate is up. When water comes back from the main sewer, the flap gate closes. So no water comes into the home. Now, the sewage still coming from the home can't go anywhere either. So if the storm is 3 weeks long, then certainly you're going to have a backup of your own sewage. But normally storms are short duration. There's enough storage in your plumbing and your piping that stores that small amount of flow. And people that have backwater valves would be educated to say, hey, let's not take 4 baths during a storm, let's not run the dishwasher, and those sort of things. So let's conserve water while a storm event is occurring, and the valve could be closed. So to Philip's point, if it's closed and you're draining your roof drains, then certainly that's going to back up and now flow into your home, because that's going to be a large volume of water. So those kind of details, none of this is new. A lot of that stuff has already been, people have taken the arrows already, so we should be able to avoid a lot of that and learning and what those folks have done. But that's a great point.
Any other discussion? Brad?
Yes, I'm looking at page 1 of this, RJ, and I just have a couple of clarifying questions. So, since the gentlemen from Stewart Street are here, and it reminded me that their storm event happened on June 22nd of 2018.
20th.
20th, thank you. So it was a year ago, roughly. In the case of this type of thing, would we accept like paperwork from, let's say, those gentlemen saying they'd like to apply just based on the fact
I would think that certainly for that we should.
Absolutely. Well, I'm just using that as one example, but in the sense of folks who hadn't come to really notify the borough about the event and maybe didn't have such receipts for it, how are we going to, do we have to, what I don't want to see happen is they have to get flooded first, and then we have to say, well, you did get flooded, and that's,
Yeah. So
we have a program, that's really great.
No, I understand the point. I mean, it's something that we've discussed in the office.
And I think it's up to council to acknowledge those exact points. Those were some of my questions about how do we address people who have had that happen. And I think, we need to, look at how we're going to deal with that on a case-by-case basis, making some provision for pre-existing applications. That's what I would think.
To that point, this is anecdotal, but last year when I spoke with residents up on Bar Avenue after this event, some of them, and Stewart, some of them had indicated that they've been unfortunately a part of these events over a 50-year period, 20-year period, but lucked out June 20th of 2018. So, I would hope that we would be able to kind of have a criteria in place to make sure, because the other option is one that I think we've discussed, which is, because this I think is a great program and I'm happy that we're addressing it, but as Mr. Minsterman indicated, and we've all heard, that this is still just kind of a temporary thing.
Right.
So ultimately we still have to, I feel, whether it's this body or another, address the larger.
Right.
Oh,
Which is what those 2 motions go a long way that we just passed, and the grant applications should go a long way towards And, it may be that, some of the people who had issues last year at this time, who didn't experience them this year, might be getting some benefit from the program that we completed last year. Weird program.
As long as there's criteria that we can make it inclusive for everybody, and just not those.
Right, and then, I'd recommend that, you think about how that wording might be, work with the solicitor and with, the engineers to figure out some, fair way. I mean, possibly looking at, when was the last time, and if they had, if they were involved in 2018, and, credibly say, yeah, I've had it before, maybe that's what our threshold is.
Oh, no.
And then we'll be able to, we'll be able to take community comments from there. So,
Thank you.
Okay. Fred, were you connected?
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Alice, any thoughts or questions about this?
No.
Okay. So, this is, essentially a discussion point. I would assume that we need to do, and I'd like to see this move fairly quickly. So, I am wondering whether council would like to have your question answered, do a little research on, and then put some information together about pre-existing, and perhaps have the solicitor work on a model resolution that's based on Brentwood, so that we have something a little more substantial to discuss at the next meeting. Or your council thoughts?
Yeah, that's fine.
I concur.
Yeah, I concur with that, that's fine.
Yeah. All right. Do we need a motion for that, or just an agreement?
I'll just need the information and then I can get to the bottom.
All right, all right. So then, moving on to the next discussion item, at our last meeting, we talked about the boards and commissions. The boards and commissions, and we have positions open. We had some confusion about how many and who we had applied, and so we said we would put that on the agenda and try and fill as many of those today as possible. So I would like to begin to walk through these and see what we have, and get council's thoughts on filling them with the applications we have. So we have a list in our packet, letters of interest received for remaining vacant board commission seats. And the applicants are listed in the formatted date the letter was received and the name of the applicant. And then we all have had for some time, and I think during our last meeting, we pointed where the various letters of interest are. So our building appeals board, we have 3-year term, 3 members. There will be terms, RJ, am I reading this correctly? We have two
yes.
open, one with a term that expires at the end of 2020, and one that expires at the end of 2021. And Mark Viola's term will be ending at the end of this year, but he is still in that seat. We have an applicant from March of this year, Brandon Edie, I think it is. And we have his letter of interest with his resume. Yeah, okay, the resume is included in your packet. So I would like to entertain any thoughts about this and potential motion to appoint Brandon to this seat.
Yeah, can we start with the building appeals board?
That's what
What
the
did I
plan
just,
is for.
isn't that what I just said, or did
Yeah.
I read something? I'm sorry. Did I?
Can I make a motion?
Yes, please do.
A motion to appoint Brandon E. To the Building Appeals Board for a 3-year term.
What would be,
I
No,
would,
actually,
I would just suggest that whatever the end date of the term is part of the motion.
yeah.
Right.
So it's
yeah.
easier to track.
So the 2021?
For the remainder of the 3-year
For
term.
the remaining of the December 30, for the term ending December 31st, 2021. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll put it in the standard format.
Okay. And do we have a second?
I second.
Oh, okay. I think Fred, sorry, Fred. Fred seconded that. All right. Yes. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Brandon Eady has been appointed to fill the December 31st, 2021, term ending December 31st, 2021. And just a note to the community, we still have one position available that is empty, and are looking for more interested applicants. No, that's not okay. You let me know. Okay. All right. Then moving on to the Civil Service Commission. Those are 6-year terms. There are 3 members and 2 alternates. We have an unfilled term that ends in 2024, July 1. Joseph Hayes' term will be ending in 2020, just as a heads up. We have 2 applicants. The first one dated 8/29/18 from Adam Jefferson, and a letter of interest dated February 22nd, 2019 from David Bloom. They have some discussion about, I think this is the one that we have had in here for some time, and we have been urging the last meeting to appoint.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
I would like to ask those candidates to come in and say a few words before we make an appointment there. I'd like to interview them a little bit.
Okay, what is anybody else?
Sure. Sounds good.
Okay, so, can we make then arrangements to see if Adam and David are available for our next meeting? So that we can move that along. All right. Moving on to Parks and Shade Tree Commission, 5-year term. There are 5 members. There is a open seat whose term expires March 31st, 2020. And we have a vacancy, so there's 2.
So that's just, yeah, this one's formatted a little odd, but I just tried to capture anything that was up in the next calendar year.
Right.
So technically, this term is the only one that's ending in 2020, and it also is available for advertisement and filling now. So theoretically, that would have been, I think, Susan's.
Oh,
term.
okay, so we have a
Yeah.
position open, and we have no applicants. So again, we would urge the community to step forward, and anyone who might be interested in helping with Parks and Shade Tree to send in letters of interest. Oh, Alex?
Excuse me, I wanted to ask, did Kathy Giglio, I believe that's how you pronounce her name?
She was appointed.
She was appointed.
However, we now have a vacancy because Susan resigned.
Okay.
And she was the only, or Kathy, yeah, she was the only applicant up at this point, so.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so she's already on, and we
She's
need
there.
other
Okay.
applicants, or more applicants, have a choice.
Yeah.
Okay, and then on the planning commission, those are 4-year terms. There are 5 members. There are no open positions at this point. We have a term ending in 2020, Lydia Herring, who is currently the chair. So no action on that committee. The Recreation Board, 4-year terms. We have recently upped the number of members on that board to 9, and that has left terms available, 2 new terms that would end December 31st, 2021. We do have a technical empty position that expires September 30th, 2019. However, with the other ones available, that seems like that would be a wasted effort to fill. And then we have terms ending in 2019, Mary Luxbacher and Roy Neiman. So there will be yet 2 more, leaving essentially over half of the board.
Well, I mean, I haven't spoken to anyone about whether or not they want
Right, I get that,
reappointment,
I get that.
but yeah.
So at this point, we would be looking for some new applicants, since we have none at this point, and then seeking Mary and Roy's interest in standing for another term. And finally, we have the Zoning Hearing Board, 3-year terms, 3 members, 2 alternates. There is an alternate position available that expires in 2019, which means that position will be open again. And we have no applicants. James Shriver is alternate term, ends.
He's on the regular.
He's on the regular,
So
okay.
his regular term ends 2019, and then the alternate vacancy term.
Oh,
ends in
okay, I get it,
2019.
I get it. And right now, we have no applicants, and as we talked about a little earlier, that this is a very important board, especially if we are going to be looking at a wholesale review of our zoning ordinances. So getting at least 1 applicant or more would be very, very important, and we will encourage participation in that area. Having read through all of those, are there any questions, discussion by council on this issue?
Thank you, Mr. President, for moving this along. It's been hanging out there for months.
Okay.
So thank you for moving this along. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah,
did,
too.
thank you, thank you. Any other thoughts or comments about any of these boards? All right. Just finally, community members, being really actively interested in getting these boards filled and various participation in these arenas. Our final item that's on the discussion items officially is the council seat that is available. I'm very excited that we actually had 5 applicants who filed letters of interest in the office by the deadline. We did get one that was after the deadline, which we are not considering at this time. And unfortunately, one of the applicants who had thought they could be here has been called away on business and is not available to speak tonight. And given our interest in moving forward and the advertising requirements, we will hear from the 4 who are here in attendance. And what I'd like to do is, in the order that we received the letters of interest, to give each applicant 3 to 5 minutes to speak to the community and to council about what they have to offer and how they think they can best serve the community. So, RJ, we have the...
Everyone should have gotten a special packet that was distributed, even if you didn't get a printed one, that had a cover sheet with the...
I've got the wrong one here.
You're looking at the backflow one. This one. And this has all the letters with it, so if you didn't get one of those, let me know.
Okay, just everybody in council either has had a chance to review these between Friday and today. And our list of candidates who are in attendance in the order that we'll ask them to speak: Anthony Saba, David Bloom, Edward Alo, Roy Neiman, and we had Eric Valchef, but he is not available to speak tonight. So, Anthony, would you like to begin?
So first off, I just want to say thank you to council and the community for taking the time to actually...
It's already on, Mr. Amendola. No.
What's the time limit on that?
We said 3 to 5 minutes.
He's trying to ice the kicker, don't worry.
Okay, thank you.
So the clock.
I am restarting the clock, I promise you.
Who's keeping time?
I
Coletta's
am.
got it.
All right.
So as many of you know, my name is Anthony Saba. I'm a resident on Broadhead Avenue, 568. And quite frankly, I've been interested in Borough Council since the first meeting I attended where then Councilwoman Perry had put the idea in my head. And since that day, it kind of resonated. And I remember, I believe our conversation was, be the change you want to see. So, this is why I'm standing here in front of you today. So a little bit about me. My husband and I, as many others in this great borough, stumbled upon Crafton. And once we purchased our home and made Crafton our home, we realized that Crafton is a hidden gem. And as with any community in Western PA, there is a rich history. But with an influx of new residents wanting to call Crafton home, many things are changing. I have noticed that there has been a huge gap between the newcomers and lifelong residents. My goal, if appointed and or elected to Borough Council in the fall, is to be a voice for the entire community and to bridge the gap that exists amongst the many factions of this great borough. As the child of immigrant business owners, as well as my current position as a staffing executive, I believe that I have the experience that it takes to help the borough run efficiently. I am tasked every single day with providing solutions, all while keeping in mind different parties' interests in ensuring that everyone is working together toward the common goal. I feel that my experience makes me an asset for this borough and for council, and as we strive towards keeping the borough great and encouraging growth. My vision for Crafton is very similar to the one set forth by council and Mayor Bloom. Keep this borough great and strive for improvements that would stimulate growth and will make Crafton more than just a hidden gem, but a place that home buyers and business owners seek out to live and work. I'd like to see more transit-oriented and mixed-use development, as well as a push to help promote the current and future businesses in the borough. Also, I'd like to see many of the recommendations made by the comprehensive plan implemented. Because at the end of the day, my goal as a council member would be to ensure that there is transparency and that every member of our community is engaged and has direct input in the decisions that affects all of us as neighbors. In science, we are taught a very valuable lesson. When you shake a bottle of water, the water will sway, but eventually will return to the equilibrium point. I utilize this saying in every aspect of my life. And I believe in every case or decision, there is an equilibrium point to where all parties' needs and or concerns are being met. And I want to be that person that can ensure that we're all coming to that equilibrium point on every decision. I appreciate your time and great to call Crafton home.
Thank you, Anthony.
Do we need to say anything about the resident part now, or?
Yeah, we'll do questions in a moment.
Yeah.
Let's let the
Two
solicitor.
questions.
Yes.
Are you a registered elector of the borough?
Yes.
And have you lived in Crafton Borough for at least 1 year prior to today?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. And
Wait,
then,
I
do you
think
want to hold
council
on for a
members may have
second?
a question.
Do any council members have questions for Anthony?
I think Mr.
Yes.
Amendola has a question.
Okay, Mr. Amendola?
Hi, actually, Mr. Anthony, I have 6 questions. And I'm going to ask you to spend 30 seconds while Would
show.
Mr. Steve be the
Is there
timekeeper
rules
there
set up
for
for
us?
this, Ms. Perry?
No, no,
Okay. Is there something we weren't aware of?
no. It was something you were all unaware of. So, 6 questions is a lot at this point.
I'm sorry?
I said 6 questions is a lot at this point, but let's see how this goes. I'm assuming that you're gonna want to ask this of all 4.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah, I have 6 questions for each candidate, but I only want a 30-second answer.
Okay,
Some of it they've already answered, but
okay,
let's go through the list and it'll be quick.
okay, let's give it a go.
Would Mr. Steve be the timekeeper for 30 seconds, please?
I'm handling it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Anthony, the first question is, and you've already answered this question, but I'm going to ask it again, and just take 30 seconds to repeat, okay? Why are you interested in serving on Crafton Borough Council?
So I would say my main interest in serving on Borough Council is to be a voice for every party, every member of this great borough, and making sure that we're all working together to come towards common goals to see growth happen and stimulate growth, and also encourage business growth and help our current businesses in the borough as well.
Okay, so,
Okay.
Fred, hold on, Fred.
That was 21
So-
seconds.
Yeah, that's fine. This is a question that I believe every single presenter will be answering in their presentations. So if those are answered by the rest of the presentations, I would ask that we don't ask for repetition. And so let's move on to the next one. And if the other 3 will make note, any of these that you can incorporate, then we will not repeat the question. So the next question, Fred?
Okay, and you've partially answered this second question already in saying about your experience and your expertise, but I guess my question is, what is that expertise that sets you apart from the other candidates seeking the appointment?
So like I said, growing up as, my parents were both business owners, so I grew up very closely in the business, and I was involved from everything from sweeping the floor to the management of the business. And given that experience, I've learned to work with a diverse background of folks, everybody from my age group up to folks who are my grandparents' age group.
We're
And
good. We're good.
we're good. Okay.
All right, next question.
What is your vision for Crafton in the next 5 to 10 years?
Wait a minute. How can you ask that, excuse me, how can you ask that kind of question and ask someone to answer it in 30 seconds?
In the interest of doing it quickly, I'll give 30 seconds, that's all.
Yeah, no, I have to respectfully beg this question. I believe that that is the main theme of the presentations that have been made. The conversation over, his presentation in his 3.5 minutes that he took, thank you, Anthony, talked about his vision. And I don't think that question has to be asked again. I think that we need to be on point, and that we need to make sure that every one of the other candidates talks about their vision, but I believe we've seen Anthony's vision, and let's move on to the next one, Fred.
Okay, you might want to strike this question too. If appointed to Crafton Council, what will be some of your goals and priorities? So we'll skip that one too, huh?
Yeah, because, I mean, basically, Anthony outlined what his goals and priorities are.
Okay,
All right?
all right. 2 more questions.
Okay.
Do you have any experience in interacting with borough managers, our police department, our public works, our budgeting, or our code enforcement officials? If so, please say how and why. And I think you can have a little more time if you want to talk about your experience with that.
So my experience is not tied to, so to say, government but I do have experience. Currently, I'm actually a sitting member of the Pennsylvania State Board of Racquetball. We are the governing body and a nonprofit that oversees the sport throughout the entire state. We have bylaws that we are regulated by, not only set forth by the state, as well as set forth by the national governing body. In the past, when I was at Pitt, I was involved with many different organizations, and I have a lot of experience working with different partners. While I have not necessarily worked with the police on the government side, I've worked from the business side. I've worked with all different types of partners. I have interaction from a business perspective of dealing with, for instance, the city of Pittsburgh and dealing a lot with their ordinances. But I'm very big on educating myself, and I do know, my husband being an attorney, he's also my counsel, so if I don't know something, I find the resource how to find the answer.
Okay, thank you. Have we covered all of the questions, or is there one more?
How long have you lived in Crafton?
I've lived in Crafton, it's approaching a little bit over 2 years.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred.
Madam President, can I speak, please?
Yes.
Anthony, thanks for your eloquent letter and your thoughtful speech. I just want to let everybody know that, you know, none of us had any experience before we were elected here. Did you, Ms. Perry?
Board experience, that was, yeah.
Phil, any experience in dealing with the budgeting process of a local municipality?
No.
Mr. Bloom?
That's why we went to the local government academy.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
well, we did all attend that.
yeah, I think it's important to realize that, you know, most of us come in here without any relevant experience, and we shouldn't let that be any kind of deciding factor, nor should we allow ourselves to be governed by some kind of methodology as to how long you've lived here and whether or not you have a right to speak. Do you pay taxes in this borough?
Yes.
So it is
Yes.
this council person's opinion that we should not be making these types of metrics for this.
Yeah, I believe that we have the one requirement that the solicitor is asking, and I think that that's what we need to go by, is have you been here a year?
Now, one thing I would like to add real quick, so when it comes to
Sure.
budgeting, I do have a degree in accounting. I've worked in accounting, I've worked as a financial analyst, so numbers are my best friend.
Thank you. All right. Moving on.
Mr. President, may I
Yes.
speak with,
Yes.
that Brad that made that comment?
Yes?
Okay, Brad, my question wasn't experience in running the borough. My question was experience in interacting with our borough manager, our police department, our public works, our budgeting, or our code enforcement. I want to know if the question was about their experience interacting with people, officials in our borough. That's what the question was.
Okay, that's a
Thank you.
defining point.
I mean, to answer that, I've actually interacted with every person except for the fire department. I've interacted with them on both sides. I've worked closely with RJ, so.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
David, yep, we're good. David?
I'm not answering any of Fred's questions.
You got the job.
Good evening, my name's David Bloom, and to what Mr. Cross says, it doesn't matter how many years you live there. So, I'm good to that. And the other thing he said too, you come here as a volunteer. That's what you're doing. You're volunteering your time, you're volunteering what's going on. Do I have some background? Yes, I was on council a few years back, well, about 20 years ago. And I saw the ugly side of council. Stood up right in the meeting and walked out because I got suckered in on what was going on a vote. And at the last minute, I got a call from the borough council president that they weren't gonna put the guy on who was more qualified. So I walked out that night and I said I'd never get involved again. Well, fast forward 20 years, I figure it's a nice opportunity to volunteer. I volunteer with Special Olympics, I have for over 18 years. I also volunteer cuddling babies at the hospital, and I got sucked back in and coaching baseball again this year. So, but I look forward to the opportunity to work on council and to get to know anybody if elected. I think what everybody does here, they do the best with what they can and what they have to do. So as far as that. All right?
Okay,
I'm good.
all right.
Any questions from anybody here?
Ready?
Fred, go ahead.
I think you answered question one,
Come on.
right?
let it,
Yes.
let it go.
Is it fair to ask what your vision is for 5 to 10 years forward?
You've got plenty of time if you want to say anything about it.
Real quick. I think after meeting with some of the people of the town and the visions that's coming forward from the leadership of the borough, from the borough manager and whatnot, there's a lot to be done, and you have to start small. Once the ideas are set and the goals are set, and then as you achieve them as you go along. My vision would see the economic development that I've heard in the past, whether it's down here, whether it's swapping properties with people to get more room, to take advantage of it. So I look for the economic development, and along as far as with the home development also. I've been a homeowner in this town for 40 years, so I know what that's about also.
All right, any other questions?
Okay. Yeah, have you had any experience with interacting with the borough manager, the police department, public works budgeting, or code enforcement officials? And if so, a brief explanation.
Well, it's any interaction is minor, whether it's asking a question or talking to RJ as far as borough questions. As far as the mayor, he's my brother, so we do have conversations, but not on the political side. But I do have some experience working with Rob Kazarowski. I helped on a few projects down there for the borough, but that's about it. Not too much with the police department, or the fire department, excuse me.
All right.
Okay, and the last question, how long have you lived in Crafton? You mentioned your house.
We disqualified the how long you've lived in Crafton. He's already said
I've
he
lived
owns
there
it
at
for
least
40
2 years.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I lived here at least 2 years, and I am a registered.
We need 1 year.
So I can't ask that question anymore, is that?
No, because the solicitor is asking the one that is legally required, and these applicants are telling us anyway how long they've been here. All right.
All right, can I jump in here? I don't mean to overtake this thing, but I have Eric on FaceTime. Can we put him on?
Okay, if we can do that, then we will have him talk at the end. I've been up under the impression he was not available.
Sure.
So we will absolutely consider him. David, if you have nothing else,
No,
thank you
ma'am.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to Edward.
Thank you, Council President Perry. My name is Edward A. Little. You can call me Ed. I have resided in Crafton for approximately 2 years. I actually first learned of Crafton whenever I was an undergraduate at Duquesne, and I became friends with Chrissy Wolberg and, as some of you may know, Ray Savacco. So whenever it came time to house shop, I was interested in looking at properties in Crafton because I had heard great things from Chrissy and from Ray. So, but I didn't realize at the time of closing that I would not only come to love my house, but I would come to love the charm that is our community here in Crafton. As some of you may know, I included a copy of my resume along with letter of interest. I am employed as an attorney at a firm in downtown Pittsburgh. There I practice some insurance defense, among other things. For the past 5 years, I have represented the old, the young, large corporations, small businesses. I've been in front of magistrate judges, superior court judges, and I've argued a gambit of various issues. In my 5 years of practice, there's always something that has stuck in the back of my head that was said by one of my professors in my second year of law school. He said, our clients don't have legal issues, they have people issues. And I believe that that's applicable to this forum here, where it's a role of municipal government, this borough council, to kind of help draft ordinances to kind of prevent and deal with these people issues, zoning in particular. And this is where I believe my legal education makes me uniquely situated to help council address some of the outdated, antiquated zoning ordinance that we've had. It has been part of my education where I learned about land use, and I learned about the limits of government authority in regulating land use. And as I mentioned in my letter of interest, some of these zoning ordinance, especially even with somebody for illegal education, can be confusing. Especially because second, as Manager Susko and I discussed earlier this week, there are properties that are non-conforming. This brings me to my next point, that Crafton is uniquely situated right outside the city of Pittsburgh to be an economic hub in the West. We already have a historic, beautiful housing stock. We have great access to transportation with the busway, easy access to highways. All we're missing is the economic development that council has clearly been working on. I believe this is where I can come in handy and help work with the solicitor, the manager, as well as the planning commission to be able to draft ordinances for zoning that work for the borough. So that the borough council does not have to come in every other week with a new amendment to a zoning ordinance to help facilitate and allow business to develop. Whether it be through special use permits, variances that can be under the authority of the manager or the building inspector or the appeals board. I believe if we are able to develop ordinances like this, it will make Crafton a much more attractive community for businesses because they don't have to wait for the borough council to meet every 2 weeks or maybe wait for publication of ordinances to be able to get work going and to be able to operate their businesses in Crafton. I do want to help make council more transparent. As I mentioned in my letter of interest, sometimes it's difficult to find the rules of procedure of how council operates. I believe President Perry has done a great job being of council today to explain that. And just to wrap up, finally, I don't really have a personal agenda to be on council. I want to do my part to help our home reach its full potential. With some of the news coverage about our borough, I believe it's important more now than ever. Can I have one?
Yes, yeah, okay.
That council fills this vacancy with someone who will listen to all sides of the matter, especially the constituents, and will vote for someone who, for what he or she believes in, that's in the best interest of the borough, not voting for special interests or for a particular group of people.
Any questions?
And
Yes.
I am a registered voter, sorry.
And you live for 2 years.
Okay, so Fred, go ahead.
So we've got that covered, his interest in serving Crafton.
Right.
We got the experience and the qualification and expertise covered. Vision, I think he talked about that.
Yep.
Goals and priorities, I guess we just have one question. Do you have any experience in interacting with our borough manager, police department, budgeting, or code enforcement officials? And if so, please give us a little information about that.
Of course. So I have recently worked with Manager Susko. She might be able to speak to you a little bit more about that in detail given this current format. I have worked with our Public Works Director and our Code Enforcement.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the second one. Did you say the Public Works?
Correct, Rob.
Okay.
I have not had the opportunity to work with the police or the fire department. Usually if it's the police, I don't want to be in trouble, so I steer clear of that. But I have served as solicitor for the McDonald Borough Sewage Authority, so I do have an understanding of some of the interactions with other borough officials.
Okay, can I ask you about the interaction with the manager and the Public Works?
I just, you know
No,
what, he's
no,
just
no.
answered, Fred, he said that he's had experience with them. I don't know that we need to go into much more detail.
Okay.
And I would really appreciate that, so that we can move along. We have 2 more. I would like to thank you, Edward. And then our next applicant is Roy Neiman.
Good evening, everyone, Madam President. Excuse me. In my novella that you folks got, I apologize, I know it was long, but I had a lot to say. In terms of Crafton, I was another one of those people that moved here and was going to be transient, and I said, no, I love it here, I'm going to stay here. And then from that spawned, I need to be involved. So as you folks noticed over time, I started showing up for council meetings. Eventually I got on the recreation board to actually see how it works, or see how government works here. Got involved in
Can you get that on mute? Go ahead, Roy.
Got involved in the community. I coached baseball this year, back in my, it was one of my favorite things to do. I would say the reason I'm doing this is I want to help. It's not a ego thing. It's not, I want to walk in and say I'm councilman and be all powerful. It's how can I help the community and get involved. And for that, I have gotten involved. And I'll answer one of Fred's questions even before he asks it. I have gone to, I don't think I've missed, that's the wrong way to say it. I don't think I've not gone to every board meeting at least once. And some I've gone multiple times, like the planning commission, I'm trying to think of the other ones. But I've talked to police officials, or police patrolmen. I've talked to Public Works. I've interacted with all the board members. As a matter of fact, today I tried to talk to the fire chief, but he's out on a seminar right now. It just so happens. I didn't know that was going to come up. But I've been trying to touch base with just about everybody that I can talk to, including my neighbors and whatnot, to get feedback from them. So with that, fire away with questions.
Okay, anybody here? All right, Fred, we got him back. Fred, do you have any questions for Roy, please?
You know what, I think he answered all the questions that were on my list. Yeah, I think he answered them all in his presentation.
All right, very good. Well, thank you, Roy.
Your turn.
Yes. Are you a registered elector of the borough?
Yes, sir.
And have you lived in the borough for at least a year prior to today?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Roy. All right, and then Brad is going to hopefully get the technology working so that we can hear from the fifth applicant who was called away on business.
Eric, are you there? I'm here. Okay, so you're on my computer. I'm just gonna stick you over here, as such.
Oh, wow.
He's in his car
Yeah.
at a business meeting, so he's,
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, can you give me like a test, 1, 2, 3, please?
1, 2, 3.
Okay, let's see if I can. All right, so,
As long as it goes.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll do our best. Okay. Eric, you have 3 minutes?
3 to 5
3
minutes.
to 5 minutes for your stump speech, my friend.
Oh, I thought there would be questions.
There'll be some questions afterwards.
My name is Eric Battleship. I am a Crafton resident of 15 years. I have been to a handful of board meetings, not certainly as many as you have. I think Crafton has a number of great things about it. I was just talking to the Director of Education for the state of Utah about how lovely Crafton is. Our sidewalks, our parks, the fact that we have 3 exits off of a highway and yet no one can find us. It's really, in perspective, a lovely town. I think there's great things in store for Crafton. I think it's been great to live here and raise 3 kids here for the past 15 years and walk a dog wherever you can on a sidewalk. I think that there's certainly opportunities for us to improve and grow.
town Crafton celebrates here in a few weeks. So I think I can contribute perspective to the group. I'm great at asking questions. I'm great at looking at numbers. So I guess that would probably be a good summary of me. I'd love to hear any questions that you may have.
Okay, anybody here in the room?
Could you perhaps, Ms. Perry, summarize Mr. Amidola's questions for the gentleman, so we don't have to do a telephone?
Oh, yeah, telephone.
Question and answer
You put me on
session?
the spot there, Mr. Kraus. So let's see, we got a friend.
I think it would probably just be interactive.
Yeah, so,
Here, what the summary.
okay.
So,
Let's see, so I think Fred was very interested in your interactions with various borough officials and entities. Could you speak to that for a moment?
Interactions with borough officials and entities, not so much. I walked through the facilities complex at the bottom of the hill by the ballpark frequently. As far as, I think I've had very little, interaction. I don't know.
All right, and I think one of the other questions had to do with a quick summary of your strategic vision for Crafton in the coming years.
Oh, sure. So I would say the strategic vision I have is based off of why I moved here. I am very impressed with our location. We're surrounded on three sides, if you will, as the city of Pittsburgh, and yet we're this fiercely independent little enclave. I think that kind of defines who we are as a community. It is a community. It is all together, and we are kind of on our own in our little valley. As far as how we promote ourselves and grow and keep ourselves healthy and thriving, I think that the community plan was a wonderful idea. We should continue moving forward with it. I think that we need to promote the fact that we are a very walkable, very livable, small community. I think we're heading in the right direction on a great number of fronts. I can tell you that our elementary school is growing. It is a community-oriented school. We have a terrific library that we should continue to try and find ways to help them innovate and be an even stronger part of the community than they are. I think that we have some small business in our community, but I do believe that we have a tremendous opportunity to grow our business footprint. So being creative in how we market ourselves, if you will, to those businesses that we made this year.
Okay. All right, thank you. I think we covered pretty much everything with those two questions.
Yes, thank you.
All right, okay. Thank you, Eric. Yeah, we're good. We're good. All right, so we have just heard.
No, Stacy first.
Okay, great.
All right. We have just heard from 5 very interested and interesting community members who would like to serve on this board. I was speaking to the solicitor earlier today. He did tell me that this was going to be about the hardest thing that a council does, and that was trying to appoint one person to a vacancy in a field of excellent people. And I do want to say that I'm impressed with everybody's presentation, and I think that each and every one of you would be an asset to this board. Fortunately, several of you are on the ballot and have a pretty good chance of being on this council based on the votes that you'll be receiving in November. And I wish you all the best of luck with that. I think the way to move forward, now that we've heard everything and we've all had a chance to read the letters of interest and hear what each member has to say, I would like to do similarly that we did with our reorganization and just take nominations and then vote on them. And what I expect is if we have more than 2 nominations, that we may do more than one round of voting, dropping the person with the fewest, to the point where hopefully we will get a majority of our board to appoint and to vote on one of these excellent candidates. So I would entertain nominations.
I nominate Eric Valchef.
Okay? Well, then we don't need a second if we remember from last week. Eric's name is on the table. Do we have anyone else that?
I nominate Mr. Bloom.
Okay, so we have Eric Valchef and David Bloom.
I'd also like to nominate Edward Allo.
Can we have the same person nominating more than one person?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, so we have David, Edward, and Eric. Okay? We're good. We're good. We have 3 names, unless there's anybody else.
Closing the floor?
Unless, I mean, do you have yet another one?
I think it would be in the best interest of this body to consider all 5 equally and debate their merits in an open forum instead of trying to, I understand we're all figuring this out as we go, and I'm not looking to put anyone on the spot.
I can't hear what he's saying. I can't hear him.
Okay, let's move that over. So basically, Brad is suggesting that we have, we consider all of them and debate the merits. One of the issues that and certainly if that's what council wants to do, and we have a majority of council who wants to do it that way, I am open to considering it. However, I think that this is a very, very difficult choice, and as I said, and I mean it, we have 5 excellent candidates. And especially since we have 3 of those candidates who are on the ballot, that too much discussion from any of us could be construed as an endorsement of a candidate that is running for office. So I personally would much prefer that we each take our own counsel and that we vote until we come up with a candidate.
So we would then, by that rationale though, we have a nomination on the floor.
We have 3 nominations at this point, unless somebody feels strongly about more. If we put all 5 of them up, we could just do roll call vote all the way through and have each person speak their vote until.
Nomination at convention time.
There you go. So would this body prefer to just do roll call vote and drop applicants off until we have a majority?
How long does this seat go for?
Till the end of this year. So we're talking about 6 months. Because this position will be on the ballot in November to fill a 2-year term. And that's a whole other issue. So we are talking about selecting one of 5 excellent people to sit with us for the next 6 months to help us move our agenda forward. Okay, no, it's there.
Well,
Okay.
this is clearly coming down to the you and me show, so, if it's, I understand that, there are there are people that are running don't want to be partisans to anybody on this side of the aisle. I really understand that, so I'm very empathetic to your point, and it's well made, that, you know, we don't want to have tainted them, so to speak, and I use that a little heavy of a term, but that's the first one from their mind. So I understand that point, but I think that this is a pretty important thing, and we talked about transparency, we talked about doing things in a public forum with, I mean, this is uncomfortable for me too, so
Yeah, that's
let's
fine.
just get it done and do it the right way, and then we can all stand and say we did it the right way and we all agreed. So if it's up to me, I would say that we would do this like a nominating convention in the old time. We would go around and say a name until someone gets 4, they win. If they don't, they don't. And then we go from there. We have 2 votes for this person, 2 votes for that person. Of course, if there's anything that you have to add, Mr. Solicitor, to that process, please do.
I think you guys are working this very well. It's not my decision to make.
Well,
From the legal perspective, you
yeah,
guys
either
have.
one is fine. We
Yep,
have
yep,
from-
absolutely.
We discussed this earlier.
Either
So,
That's my call.
all right.
Except that you're the president.
We let this engineer go?
If you'd like to go, he's welcome. He's welcome. Thank you.
Wait, before you go, can you sign 2 resolutions and can I give you this good book?
Oh, yes, I can do that.
Okay.
So,
You have to, you have to.
So.
are they in here? Oh, yep, sign, 2
I
signs.
need.
Okay,
oh,
give me a
no, no,
moment.
Not the book.
Not the book?
Sign this and sign this. And you know what, Charisma still has to attest these, so that doesn't fix that problem. He just needs a green book and then he can go.
Oh, okay. So he doesn't need these.
Well, right.
Okay.
Mr.
Mike-
Minsterman.
Mr. Minsterman.
I realize that Charisma has to attest
See ya.
your signature.
See you, Friday.
Your initials.
All right. All right, there we go. Moving on, Mr. Kraus, I'm happy with that. Shall we just start at your end of the table?
Now, can we start with the roll call as is called Kraus, Ammons, Glasser,
Okay, yes.
Will, Perry?
All right, I concur with that as well, Mr. Lavasser.
So just so we understand the rules of engagement here, we're gonna go by alphabetical order, and we're gonna call our first preference. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
We're not gonna speak about them at all in any sense of yes. Yep, got it.
All right,
Okay, sorry, let me get my pen here. Mr. Kraus.
Question, who are they voting?
well, no, so
Just
basically,
call out
there we're
order.
gonna, so it's open, all 5. We're going to go around in roll call order and have each person give, yes, and we'll do that until we have majority. It will go fairly fast. Pardon? The low vote getter on Facebook goes out.
Steve, you're writing this down, right?
No,
Oh,
Okay.
yes,
I thought he was right.
all right,
I would stand for Eric Valchek.
okay.
Ms. Dammits.
We can get this green rules.
We will,
Yes.
so Brad has voted for Eric, and then the next person is
Ms. Dammits.
Ms. Stamets,
Eric.
Marcia, Eric,
All right. Ms. Glosser.
Eric.
Mr. Lavasser.
Eric.
That kind of seems conclusive.
all right.
Mr. Amendola.
Mr. Amendola?
Oh, my phone died.
Oh,
Literally.
no! Here, I'll call him.
That's what I said, it might go.
Hold on, I can get him.
It's over.
Okay. Yes, but
For
let's
the
just,
record.
for the record.
I'm gonna put $20 on.
No, just,
Maybe.
Taking notes for a reason.
so we have 4, right?
We do.
Yeah. Hello, Fred. Okay, we're trying to finish this vote. I don't know where it died so far, just to catch you up. We have Mr. Kraus for Eric, we have Ms. Dammits for Eric, we have Ms. Glasser for Eric, and Mr. Lavasser for Eric. So, do you want to weigh in, or do we move on because we have 4 votes?
So you said 1?
So basically, at this point, it's pretty much, we have 4 votes out of 6 for Eric. So you can either weigh in or abstain because we're already there.
I'll vote for Eric.
Okay.
Ms. Perry?
I am going to abstain because I got to stay friends with everybody, and council has already decided.
All right.
All right. All
May
right.
I?
You may now.
Okay, so now that council has come to consensus on this candidate, council must consider resolution 2019-9, which is a resolution of the Borough of Crafton, Allegheny County.
Right here?
So I say it right. Appointing Eric Valchef to fill the vacancy resulting from the resignation of Abby Rosario.
Sorry, I
from
didn't mean to
Borough
hang up on you,
Council.
Fred.
So someone will need to make a motion for resolution 2019-9 to make it official.
I'll make a motion for resolution 2019-9.
Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, public, that's right. Thank you. I should know that by now.
No, that's okay.
All right. Do we have any, this one is on accepting Abby's resignation officially.
No, this is
No.
about appointing Eric Valchef.
Okay.
This is the formal process.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep.
That was last.
I just wanted to bring up an issue that I believe Madam President had brought up with respect to the publication for the filling this vacancy, specifically stated that you were required to be in attendance to be considered for the
Would you like to
Yes.
speak to that,
Yes.
Mr.
Mr.
Solicitor?
Valchef is in attendance under the Borough Code. Members of council can participate electronically. And so under the those rules, he did attend the meeting.
Okay. Sorry, I asked a question. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Just a vote.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes. And do we need anything else?
No, Mr. Valchef will need to execute an affidavit of residency and take the oath of office, and then he will be a full member of council.
Okay. And I seriously encourage, best of luck to those that are on the ballot, and for all of you to look at these vacancies we have, and please find a way to put your great talents and your interest in this borough and your love of this borough into effect, because we'd like to have each and every one of you participating in some way. So I thank you all. And moving on, this is our discussion meeting. So does anyone else on Borough Council have anything else they would like to bring up for discussion this evening?
Yes, we was talking about the stop signs and stuff. You didn't mention the one in Emily and Crafton Boulevard. Is that being looked at?
Was that one of the, okay, so
No,
was
that
that one that
wasn't-
was on the resolution, or was that the one you asked the mayor to look into?
You asked the mayor.
Okay, so from the last meeting, you said something about looking into the stop sign at Emily and Crafton?
South Emily,
South Emily, thank you.
that has been there.
Mm-hmm.
And so are we talking constructing another stop sign in which direction are you speaking of? I'm assuming you're talking westbound.
At Griner's property.
I'm sorry,
At Griner's property.
that's westbound, okay? And the reason for that would be,
Site, you cannot see anybody coming up there.
okay, then that would be, in my estimation, that would be a property owner's problem that they would have to cut the bushes down, okay? Because you're talking a 90-degree turn, and If you can't see, it's not because of the borough, it's because of the property owner, is that correct? Would you see it that way? Okay, so just because, I would say to address the site clearance would be the hedges, otherwise you're gonna have a stop sign at every intersection. You have one at Johnson Street, you have one at North Everett, you have one at South Everett, you have one at South Linwood, you have one at North, or I mean, yeah, South Linwood, then at North Grimby. Then every block, you can't have a stop sign in every block in a community. I mean, that's where it's getting to be. And I would think that it would be less advantageous for the community. I don't know of any, Marcia, I don't know of any accidents that have occurred there.
You don't?
Not recently, no. I mean, the tractor trailers that just ripped up the intersection up there a few weeks ago, that's
what, no.
That's under
Many
stupidity.
accidents there, many close.
Okay, let me check and see how many accidents we've had there and how long, how long a period of time you want me to go back?
I'd like to say something. I find that stop sign at South Emily is very necessary. I find that people stop there, they look to see what is coming out of North Emily, and it has been just as in Pittsburgh, as we do, one and another, one and another. And I have not seen anything that would contradict that.
Okay, go back 2 years and see how many accidents there are at South Emily and the Boulevard. How many?
Okay, I'll check it, I'll get you a report at the next meeting of how many traffic accidents over there. But I'm asking you, what period of time?
She has 2 years. 2 years. She's writing this down for you.
Okay.
And Steve, you were mentioning what the potential options are.
If it's a hedge issue that's in the clear sight triangle, we can handle that from a code enforcement perspective as well, to have the hedges trimmed or removed.
I believe the gentleman has already.
He has taken a section of the hedging on that corner back so many feet from the, let's say, the corner of the intersection, back, you know, at the Borough Crafton. That was years ago. But if that's still creating a problem, then I drive up that corner every day and I don't have a problem, you know, making a turn or seeing, as long as you stop at the intersection, you can see.
I think that's done a great service, is to cut the hedges, taking a lot of that.
They're stopping at the stop sign, but you cannot see anything, and then they're pulling out and.
So basically, Marcia, you have asked to have the mayor look back 2 years to give us an accident report for that intersection. The manager, RJ, has made a note of that. We'll make sure that we get that, and we'll come back and discuss options further. Does that work? Okay. Anybody got anything else for Philip?
I believe last week there was a meeting with one of the agencies up in Green Tree. I think it was the 19th on the West Corridor. Did anybody attend or get the minutes from that? And if so, could we?
I'm fairly certain that was canceled and rescheduled.
Was it?
I think you're right.
Double check.
Okay, so Philip was asking about another body's meeting, whose meeting RJ believes was canceled. He was wondering whether we had any representation at that meeting. So you'll take a look at that.
Yeah, let me check. I just got the email, but give me 1 second. If I can find my phone, I will tell you.
So the answer would be, if the meeting was held, we had no representation there. So we'll have to see about getting the minutes.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, I'm fairly certain that was canceled.
So if the meeting occurred, you can get the minutes, which we can share.
If they took minutes.
If they took minutes. Or we took, yes?
What meeting are you talking about?
Philip, would you repeat which meeting you're talking about?
I can't hear it.
All right, I'll repeat it once he repeats it to me.
Right.
I believe there was a meeting with, I believe it was Port Authority on the West
Corridor. So Port Authority meeting regarding the West Corridor, that was scheduled for last week and in Greenwood.
Correct.
So
I
Philip
think it was on the Parkway
Yes.
project.
Mhm.
And that was indeed postponed without a new set date being scheduled.
Okay, so we will monitor that and make sure that we have representation. Anyone can let me know if they're interested in attending when we get a new meeting date.
I mean,
Okay?
RJ would go to that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, this is something about the Montfayette Expressway, which does not,
Apply to
Yeah, it's
us?
kind of a boring one.
no, I mean, I go to the PennDOT district updates, so, I mean, it's part of it. I don't think it's gonna be a nice opportunity to shake hands.
Oh, well,
I mean, I meant from the Crafton centric
right,
perspective.
that there are no issues under discussion on that agenda that would apply to us. All right, anything else? Okay, we have our community announcements, and we have the representatives from Crafton Celebrates, or if you have
Oh, no,
anything else?
just mention that, hey, it starts, June 28th through 30th with a parade from Bradford Avenue to Crafton Park at 6:30 PM, Friday, June 28th. Do you want to add anything? Yeah. Oh, all right.
Yes, that's what I was going to invite.
Oh,
All right.
I forgot.
So we have it, yes.
sorry.
Yes, I've been waiting 2 hours for this moment. I actually came here to ask for volunteers. Right now, RJ's already committed to volunteering.
And I am available on Sunday. I am out of town, but I will come down as soon as I can on Sunday, and you can put me to work the whole day.
Yeah, that would be great. So we have Friday's a parade, Friday night at 6:30, Saturday is just a regular day, and then Sunday we have fireworks. So it's super hard to get volunteers right after the parade and also during and before fireworks because everybody wants to have a good time with their family, watch the fireworks, watch the parade. I personally have never seen the fireworks at Crafton, despite being there every single year, because it's the busiest time to serve French fries and pop to all of our people and fundraise to make money to put in the event for next year. So if anybody here, including everybody back here, wants to commit to volunteering, that would be super great. An hour goes a long way just with one person. I have French fries that need made, pop, water that needs served. I have bounce houses that need attendance.
Those are fun.
Do I get to
I
be
gotta
in the
tell
bounce
you,
house?
no, you don't
Not
get to
get
be in the
bounce
bounce house,
house.
but they are really fun. They are really fun to do.
Basically, we just need bodies. It's super simple way to give back to the community. And then also, we're still looking for Chinese auction basket donations. And if anybody wants to donate a basket, we'll be putting them together this week. And we have some volunteers putting them together before the festival so we can get them all ready to go. So if anybody would like to donate a basket, that's also another way to give back.
All
Any
right.
questions?
There's a question back there.
Yeah.
I'm somewhat of a traditionalist. I think it's always a shame when we don't have fireworks on the 4th of July.
We've always had, but I think this is the
We've
first.
always had them on the 4th of July.
Yeah, I
We're
think
not
this
having
is the
them
first year
this year.
that hasn't happened on the 4th, is that right?
This is the first year, and that's, there's a few reasons for that. So we cut the festival to 3 days, doesn't need to be 5 days. If we did 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, it'd be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Something that a lot of people don't know Crafton Celebrates is the main fundraiser for a lot of our local nonprofits. And so we need to utilize the weekend for our nonprofits to maximize the fundraising opportunity for the year. We can't maximize that on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We need to maximize that on the weekend, both for the people coming to the event, the volunteers that we need to get, because as I said, last year on the 4th of July, I had one person working the French fry booth. Everybody else was buying French fries, and it was not easy. So that's part of the reason that we moved it up.
Did I understand you to say that some of this money was allocated to your nonprofits as opposed to the fireworks on the 4th of July?
No.
Oh,
So,
okay.
The purpose of this
I thought
event,
I
it's a
heard that.
community event, but also a nonprofit fundraising opportunity. So a lot of our organizations, for instance, like St. Philip's there, they have a booth, and all the money that they collect at their booth goes directly to their organization. So it's the same with the Boy Scouts, the same if the Girl Scouts wanted to do it, the same with Strike Out Cancer. It's a fundraising opportunity. Crafton Celebrates, we have a French fry booth, a pop booth, and we host the bounce houses. All of the games are run by nonprofit organizations fundraising for their cause.
It always has been, and we still have the fireworks on the 4th of July.
Correct, but as I said, we can't get the volunteers for the 4th of July, and we need to utilize the weekend day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, in order to have the most customers, as well as the most volunteers available, because if I don't have volunteers, I can't have
Why did
fireworks.
you advertise for the volunteers?
We've been advertising for
We've been doing
years.
this for many, many years.
Yeah.
No, I meant this year.
This started in 1976, Crafton celebrates in the bicentennial. Volunteerism was at its max back then. They had booths, they had people, they had the ticket booths, they had people. And over the years, volunteerism in every community in this country has gone like this. Everybody's taken, nobody's giving, okay? Nobody's giving. So your volunteerism is down here where events like Crafton Celebrates is now delegated to a handful of volunteers that have to do all the work. So that's what she's looking for, is people to show up like we used to back in the day when you know, you had 30 or 40 or 50 people working every shift all the way through the 4th of July when the fireworks came. And we know what a zoo that is with, you know, well over 1,000 people or more in that park. But if you don't have volunteers, you can't do it.
And I do want to give kudos to making those hard decisions and moving forward, and it looks like you're going to have a really good event, and we all need to go out and support Crafton celebrate the people who put it on, and to help our community nonprofits. So, you know, play those games and buy those snacks. Sure.
Really quickly, to piggyback off the mayor, I'll keep it short. I think that I heard from some of my neighbors about the length of the festival, and that it's changed the disillusion of the 5K run. And I think that this is a pretty good time to step back and say, to this woman's point, which is well made, and Angela, you make good points as well, in the sense that, like, we can make it better again in forthcoming years. You know, maybe this is the time to put the word out for more volunteers, because we've seen a low tide of volunteerism. And I truly believe that people want to hold on to Crafton Celebrates as much as they clearly have a passion for it. Then we need to step up as a community, and I think that this next year might be a groundswell of volunteers as a result of having something kind of recede a little bit. You know, there's an ebb and flow to things, so I think it's probably more than likely we're going to get the fireworks back on July 4th faster rather than later, I would assume, you know, with proper volunteerism. And
So the beauty thing is next year, July 4th is a Saturday. So that may make things a little, you know, a little easier to meet all of the challenges that you are facing. And we have to respect the decisions of the people who have been in the trenches year after year. And we really appreciate it.
Just 2 quick points to.
Can you, microphone if possible, is good.
So Anthony Sava, as you all know, so I think the community makes great points, but what needs to happen is more people need to get involved. So if there is concerns, it shouldn't happen right before the event. People should get involved. There are vacancies on the rec board. Join the rec board, be an input for it, offer solutions to, you know, making Crafton Celebrates bigger. And the other question was about the beer. Where things stand with that. That's all the cheers about.
I'm not in charge of the beer. Matt will be, he'll have the paperwork in for everything.
But we're going to have it, is what it sounds like. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, everything, as far as I know, is all the boxes are checked. He's getting everything ready, and he'll have the same documentation to you guys, just as we did last year.
Okay.
Who's he?
Very good.
Matt Griner?
Oh, we're gonna do it again.
Yes.
Mhm.
And ticket, cash, or what we doing this year?
Cash, just like last year.
That worked out okay?
Actually, it couldn't have worked out any better. We had a lot of compliments on it. People actually spent more money because they were able to spend cash and they didn't have to wait in line to get tickets.
All right, super. Thank you, Angela. All right. We do, but we also, well, let's start with Dorothy Kramer, who wants to speak on West Crafton, Credle, right, Parkway? Parking, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I know it's all night, and I'll just
Well, I
say,
appreciate that you waited to
You're
the end.
still here.
I'm still
You
here.
did it.
Good, good.
I just want to thank everybody for volunteering for Crafton Borough and Crafton Celebrates. We've been involved with Crafton Celebrates since we moved into the community, and it is great. Now I'm back in as a representative of St. Philip's, and Angie does a wonderful job, and I'm excited about it. It's a different weekend, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, it's me, because I was turning down, excuse me, Dorothy, you can start over. Mr. Amendola, I had him on mute, and he couldn't hear you.
Oh, I was just thanking everybody. I really appreciate everybody who's volunteering, and I want to keep it.
Here, would you just hold it, Dorothy?
Hi, Freddie.
Thank you.
Hi, Fred. It's Dorothy Kramer. I just wanted to thank everybody for being on the board and doing all this. It's a lot to take in. I also wanted to thank Angie for Crafton Celebrates. My husband and I have been involved with Crafton Celebrates on one point or another since we moved into Crafton, so thank you. The point that I wanted to talk here about, and I do see that it wasn't on the agenda again, and I appreciate that you kind of broke it up, and we'll talk about our parking later. Thank you.
And as you mentioned, being a representative of the church, we wanted to reach out and have some conversation before we come back
Yes,
around.
and we will
I'll be
do
calling
that.
you this week.
Okay, I'm off on Friday.
On Friday,
I'm
all right, all right. Do we have any other citizens' comments at this point? All right. This meeting is adjourned. All right, Mayor.